Jim Breuer.
Jim Breuer. Jim Breuer.
Jim Breuer.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Breuniverse. So today we have Robert Kennedy Jr., and I'll just tell you this. I'm not into politics. You guys know that. I'm sick and tired of the riffraff. I'm sick and tired of Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative. It's all just a circus of hate and chaos and lies. We need to unite. How that looks, I don't know. But the way you got to start to do that is know where the people are coming from. So Robert Kennedy Jr., who I started following a little bit, a little over 2 years ago, announces he's running for presidency. And I reached out and he said, I'd love to come on the show. And I just wanted to get to know him. Before I invest in any of what he stands for, I want to get to know him. Where are these people? Who are you? Who's your essence? What's your soul? What is your life like? Do you have a family? Tell me more about that. And then you'll get my attention. Then I'll listen to your policies. I had a really good time. And I think you will too. Enjoy the Breuniverse. Let's get this podcast going.
Here he is.
All right. There he is.
Hey, sorry to keep you waiting, man.
You're not keeping me waiting. I got nothing to do all day. I got a youngest one that's 18, just graduated, and now I got nothing but time, Robert. Thanks for joining.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3 daughters. My oldest one is, I shut the bank on her a couple years ago. You know, the old, I'm going to go to school, and then we go there and we go to school for different reasons. We lose our mind. We get called like, hey, I'm going to break the lease. What? I can't do school anymore. And, you know, I'm watching Bob Ross a lot. Oh, okay. And
Bob Ross, the artist.
Exactly.
My wife loves him.
I mean, he's peaceful and all that, but I think the kids love him for a whole different other reason.
Why? Why do kids love him?
They like getting lit up and watch him. There's Bob Ross clubs. So they like, you know, taking a couple hit of weed and they watch Bob Ross. Like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. So, yeah. So the oldest one, she's now in New Zealand, just traveling the world, trying to figure things out. Middle one's in college. Now she's in Ireland studying. And then the youngest one she just graduated. She doesn't want to go to college. She wants to travel and she wants to figure things out on her own, and she don't want to be part of any corporation and this and that, and wants to learn the better things in life. And I went, I love this kid. Right out of the gate. So what about you, kids?
I have 7.
What?
Yeah. Mainly there's all still on the payroll.
No. You got 7 kids? Now, how old is the oldest? How old is the oldest?
What?
How old is the oldest?
The oldest is what, 35?
39.
39 is still on the payroll?
No, he's not on the payroll. Thank God he's not on the payroll. When that kid, you want to start this podcast and then we can talk about this stuff?
Yeah, we're already on it. We're already in it. We can start
right
now.
Anyway, that kid, he went away. He went to Brown, and then he did a year at University of Bologna. And when I went over there, he was super skinny. And I said, Bobby, you know, how'd you get so skinny? And he said, I didn't have enough money to eat. And I just only been eating pasta for 6 months. And I was like, I would send you money for food, man. So he's a guy who never asks for anything. Like he always figures it out. That might mean sleeping on a couch, sleeping on a friend's couch or something, but he literally never asked me for a dime. And he doesn't, he's very, very happy without it. And then I have a girl who's the opposite of that. I'm just like an ATM machine.
Right.
And the only time she checks in with me is when she needs cash.
Yes, I have. I shouldn't say that, but I'm at the point now when one of them call and I go, how much? Just yeah. Dad's doing good. Get to where
you punchline.
Get to how much am I writing? How much am I Venmoing here? Just get to what we're buying and what am I paying for? And that's okay. And I wonder sometimes if I'm doing the wrong thing with that or whatever. Well, where I will say the oldest one, the minute I cut it all off, just like your oldest, she's literally living in a van, not like the Farley sketch down by a river. She's literally in a van with the boyfriend in New Zealand. She parks by rivers. And she'll once way like, we're tough on money. And I'm just silent. Okay, well, knock him dead out there. Let me know you keep sending that beautiful scenery. I'm sure the two of you figure it out, but everyone has their journey. So 7. Now, how old is the youngest one?
The youngest one is 19.
Oh, wow.
And then I have a 20, and she's at SMU, and then I have a 20-year-old who's at Harvard, and and then I have one who's living at home right now, who's 20. What is Finn? 24.
Yes.
And he got out of Brown. He was a very high-end big air skier for a while, and he's a great athlete. And but he's working in a tech company, and he's living at home. He wanted to move out, and I kind of convinced him to stay because I really like having him in the house. And
yeah,
and I spend a lot of time. I go out. I do something with him almost every day, and we just talk, and it's really pretty amazing. With that kid, when he was a little kid, he played 96 hockey games a year when he was in a hockey league when he was very young, and then he switched to this big air skiing. But I had to bring him to tournaments all the time.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I ended up spending tremendous amounts of time in the car alone just with him, and I realized how important that was. To separate the kids and get them alone one at a time and spend a lot of time with them. And I bonded with that kid probably more than almost any of my other ones, just because I spent 10 hours a week in a car with him just talking about stuff. It was pretty beautiful, talking about everything, and when they're that little, he was asking me questions about, that were completely kind of unbridled by any kind of inhibition or embarrassment or anything else. But he just wanted to know kind of the fundamentals of life, and it was pretty beautiful. But I talked to him about politics and literature, poetry, tell him stories about stuff, and it was just a beautiful relationship. And I think that kid, he had ADHD. He was bouncing off of walls from when he was little, and and getting in fights all the time, which he did in a fight. He was a boxer. He went in a lot of boxing tournaments and won them in New York. And whenever he was fighting, the other kids would have this grim, look on their face when they're fighting. And he always had this big smile on his face when he was fighting. I don't know what. He never seemed like an angry, pissed off kid, but he was a really good fighter, and he fought all the time, and he got thrown out of schools. And he could have become a criminal, I think, if I didn't spend so much time with him. But anyway, I love them all. They're just like such a gift. They're like a comedy team when when they're together with each other.
Yeah, well, I would especially being a fighter. I mean, where is he? I mean, he's towards the bottom of the pack, so he's already surviving. You may see one thing at the dinner table, but when these kids turn the corner and they're in a hallway, that's another whole government. That's a whole new police department. They gotta,
and
there's things going down there. Like if you tell the president downstairs what's going on, it's going to get ugly in this wing. You got 4 years to live in here, pal. You remember who's the ruler. So yeah, of course he was a fighter.
Yeah.
It's funny.
And they, sometimes I'll ask them, what'd you do last night? And they'll say, never mind, Dad. You don't need to know what we did last night. So, and they're all in cahoots on it. And they know there's only a certain amount of information that I can handle, and they keep the bad stuff away from me.
Right. But you do want to know some bad stuff. Like my youngest one, I have that relationship as well, which I have to say, I too realize I have to have a one-on-one with each one, because you get such a deeper emotional attachment. I mean, it's our kids, but just like your son, my youngest one, I talk to her the way I would talk with my best friend, and she's open, she's honest, she goes far and wide. She's not afraid to bring up subjects. She's not afraid to be humiliated by certain things, and that's a powerful gift to have. You're blessed to have that. I'm glad you get that. So how does that affect them? I mean, all right, let me just say this. So I've noticed you more in the public eye. Yes, you've been a public eye, but some people haven't been on their radar, where now you're really thrown into the public eye. Are your kids or your wife, how long are you married?
I'm married now 9 years.
9 years. This is the new.
I mean, you're not talking cumulatively, right? You're talking about this.
No, currently.
Yeah, 9 years.
Okay. And the kids, is this all one or two marriages? 3 marriages?
Well, I was married for 12 years, my first marriage, and then my second, and ended in divorce. My second wife took her own life, and we had been married, I think, like 11 years at that point. And we're in the middle of a divorce, so this is my third.
Wow, you've had some rough go at it. Those are strong emotional dealings throughout all that. And so, wow, to have all those kids and still, what keeps you all together, man? What gets you through all that?
I would say that I have, I need to stay spiritually kind of connected all the time. And I put a lot of effort into that. But, that son that I was talking about had he was kind of, he was around, he was at a very, very sensitive age, like 8 or 9 years old, and his mom took her life. And he was, like I said, he never seemed angry.
Right.
But he was very self-contained. So he wasn't, sharing a lot of stuff, which worried me.
Right.
A little, but he ended up going on he's an outdoor adventure guy, and he went on a kayaking trip on a whitewater trip, river, a really famous whitewater river that I used to run once a year called the Futalefu, and down in Patagonia at the tip of Chile.
Yeah.
And he went down there with a buddy, and they ended up falling in with this group of Palenque Indians. And they did about 20 Indians. They did an ayahuasca ceremony.
Oh, wow.
And when he was doing that ceremony, he told me later, he felt like he was being dropped through the earth. And he could see all the kind of geological strata and understand kind of the history of them, how they had folded up over time. And then he was propelled out into space. and he would go to he would be floating in the universe, and he would see a planet, he'd focus on a certain planet, and then he would be transported there, and he would have an adventure in each one, and at the end of the adventure there was a moral lesson. And he felt like he was doing this for hundreds of years, but the last planet he went to, he ran into his mom, and she started passing in and out of him through his body. And every time she did, he felt all of this understanding and this forgiveness and love and warmth. And he came back from that trip kind of really dramatically changed, and much more open and talking about everything, like really interested in kind of the deepest feelings, and really living an examined life, and very, and examining his own motives in everything, and also kind of other people's in a curious but non-judgmental way. But he also started his behavior change. He started taking out the garbage and washing his dishes, and became really considerate of everybody around him. It was pretty extraordinary. And I was a drug addict when I was a kid. So I was a drug addict for about 14 years, and then I went to a 12-step program, which I've been in for almost 40 years.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a guy who feels like drugs are ever the answer. It's changing your behavior and changing your life. But that really kind of opened my eyes about, made me very, very curious about some of these hallucinogens, that people are using therapeutically now. And then since then, I've talked to so many people, like football players, Navy SEALs, a lot of veterans. People are friends of mine who've done the same thing and had these really extraordinary transformations that make you think.
Well, I'm pretty sure I just saw a documentary where the person that created AA,
Bill Wilson,
the way he became sober was tripping, I believe, on acid. Which I will never. I mean, I couldn't do that when I was young. Did I mess around? But what happened to him was not similar to a degree what you're talking about with your son. And I'm not promoting anyone to go trip on acid, but he found God, and he never had to do drugs again, and he never had to do anything again. It snapped him out of it. He saw everything clear. He saw, God's existence and the true meaning of our spiritual existence and our souls and who we are and how we're so out of line with everything, and where we're at as society. So that really blew my mind, completely blew my mind. And I don't know how factual that is, but I remember my little experience, and I thought I saw the devil. My friend dropped me off, and I forgot what was on, and he said, "Whatever you do, don't look in the mirror, because you're still going to be bugging out for a while." And what I looked in the mirror and my pupils, and I went, "Oh," I saw the devil, and I went, "Oh, you will never own my soul. You're going to be out. I apologize for doing this." But that really shifted me into seeing things in a deeper spiritual level. Because my family was never. My dad wasn't a church guy or anything like that, but yeah, that's
just to correct the record a little.
Please.
Bill Wilson apparently did experiment with acid, and he was the founder of AA. But it wasn't at the beginning of his sobriety. He was already sober and had kind of this spiritual transformation early. He actually had it when there was another group called the Oxford Group that preceded AA, which AA is like a 12-step program. Oxford Group was an 8-step program, but the 8 steps were designed to induce a spiritual awakening. And he had that spiritual awakening. And by the way, the Oxford Group disappeared because they got involved with the prohibition controversy. So they turned political, and it ended up destroying them. And that's why AA in its tradition says we can't get involved with any political question. But he had that spiritual awakening, and then 6 months later, he was at he felt his desire for alcohol was completely lifted, and it was a miracle to him because he'd been struggling with it for all these years, and he'd never been able to stay sober, and he always wanted to. He was extremely motivated to quit, but every time he quit, he'd start again. And then he had this spiritual awakening in the Oxford Group, and it was lifted from him and totally obliterated. It was like he had never drank before and had no desire, no obsession. The compulsions were all gone. And he thought, okay, I'm cured. And 6 months later, he was in Akron, Ohio, and he had put together, he was a very successful business guy who'd made and lost his fortune again and again because of his drinking.
Yeah.
And he was in Akron, Ohio, and he put together a deal to buy the Firestone Tire Company.
Okay.
And the deal, while he was in Akron, he went out there to ink it, and he thought it was in the middle of the Depression, and the deal was going to make him a millionaire and set him up for life. And he put all the resources into it, and he got out to Akron, and the deal collapsed.
Mm.
And he was left in the hotel in Aspen with no resources, no money, having spent everything and screwed up his life royally, sober. And he was standing in the lobby, and he could hear there's a lounge in that hotel. That hotel's still out there. There's a lounge in it and he could hear the ice clinking in the glasses and the laughter of the patrons. And all of a sudden the compulsion came back, and it was just calling him to go in there and take a drink. And he had this revelation, which is the central revelation of this 12-step program, where he said the only way that I'm going to stay sober tonight is if I help another alcoholic. And instead of going into the lounge, he went into a payphone booth, and he picked up the yellow pages. You know how those yellow pages used to be hanging on the chain, and those
right.
And he picked that up, and he was paging through looking for Salvation Armies and calling up local preachers and hospitals and saying, do you know somebody who is a hopeless drinker? And finally, he found somebody, and a guy called Dr. Bob Smith. And ironically, they met each other at the mansion of the woman who was the heir to the Firestone fortune. And he went in, and Bob Smith said to him, you got 15 minutes. Because Bob Smith, everybody had talked to him, preachers, psychiatrists, everything else. Everybody except another alcoholic. And they ended up staying up all night that night. I think they were up for many, many hours. And that was essentially the first AA meeting. And then they both realized the only way they could stay sober is by helping another alcoholic. So then they went to the hospital and found a guy strapped to a bed and got him in. And he was the third guy. And
there you go.
There.
Wow, that's an incredible. See, I need to watch that's an incredible story, though, and I don't think a lot of people know that story. It's pretty. So, you know what I love that you're so humble and you're so honest. I think all humanity needs that. Forget just politics. I think just humanity needs that. For you to come out and just say, yeah, I was a drug addict for this many years. And what people don't realize is they'll go, oh, this guy was in jail. Or, I have family that was in jail, and or this one was a drug addict. But what they don't see, they just see the label drug addict. But what they don't realize is the turmoil inside that's going on in their environment that puts them in that world. I mean, I'm sure you didn't have an easy upbringing that people don't realize. People just say, "Oh, wow, Kennedy. Oh, sure, everything must be amazing." But then you go through, your father's not around. And I don't know what it was like in childhood or whatever, but I know in my small world, all the fathers, through either divorce or drug addiction, caused, I lost my oldest brother years ago, and the death of him sent all three of his boys in a complete spot. It was really hard on my heart to watch that, and especially watch the two youngest ones go into alcoholism and do it. And then I had another nephew and everyone's doing fine now, but I find there's so much strength and there's so much stories to be told when people just say, I was addicted to drugs, but I know you got a powerful story and you came from somewhere deep of an environment that led to whatever you did. And I'm glad you're not there anymore. And I think people should know those stories. And I'm sure they do. I'm sure you wrote the books and all that. I'm sure you wrote the books. I'm not a reader, and I apologize, Robert. I will try to read. Every time I try reading, my face is planted 10 minutes later. But now this is interesting. So before you popped on here, I started hearing about some of your pets. And I hear you had a seal, you had a lion, an emu. How do you get there? How do you get to the point where you're like, you know what, I'm gonna have a lion. I want an emu. I want to walk me through this process of how this goes down, where these are your pets. Because I have a cat.
I had those other animals when I was a kid. My mother came from a family of outdoorsmen, and one of them caught a seal on the California coast. He caught a baby sea lion. He caught a bunch of little baby sea lions, and they had 6 kids in their family. And he sent a sea lion to each of his siblings for Christmas. And he said, he told us before Christmas, he always gave us good presents. We said, "What are you going to give us?" And he said, "I'm going to give you a Christmas seal." Back then, Christmas seals were these little stamps that you collected for charity, and it was a pretty, crappy Christmas present. So we're disappointed, but then a crate came off a big truck pulled in the driveway on Christmas Day, and a crate came off, and it was a little baby sea lion, and we raised him in the swimming pool, and there were fish all over the yard, and he
was like jumping because you're on the water.
This was in Virginia. In the summers we were on the water, but
how old are you? How old are you when you have the sea lion?
I was like probably 6 or 7, but he stayed with us for a couple of years, and he just swam in the pool with us. He'd jump off the diving board and he would run with the dogs. The dogs would sometimes go into the nearby town. We lived in a very rural area. And they'd go into town, and there was a milkman who would, bring the milk in the morning, and he'd see the seal with the 6 dogs walking through the town, and they'd all jump in his truck.
You had to be the most popular kid in the area. I'll tell you what, I know if I'm 6 years old, I'm making friends with Robert Kennedy out of the gate.
And then that lion, do you remember who Jack Parr was?
Yes.
Jack Parr was the guy who invented late night TV. He was a comedian, and he had the Tonight Show before Johnny Carson, but he was the one who started the Tonight Show, and he was the biggest thing on TV when we were kids, because there was only one of them. There wasn't a Jay Leno, a Dick Cavett, or, there was just one. and it was Jacques Parr, and he interviewed my dad a couple of times on that show, and they became friends. And then he was kind of like an animal rights advocate, and he found out, when they made that film Born Free, which was a film about Elsa the lion, this family in Africa had taken an orphan lion and then kind of returned her to the wild, and she had a life after that where she was half a lion, half wild, but also kind of a house pet for them.
Right.
It was a beautiful story. They made it into a movie, but when they made the movie, they needed a bunch of lion cubs to play different parts of Elsa's life. And when the movie got done filming, they were going to kill them all. And Jack Parr found out about it, and he said, "I'll take them all." So he took them. And then one night when he was at my house for dinner, he said, "Would you guys have a lot of animals here? Do you want this lion?" And I was there, and I said, "Yeah, I like that lion." So that's how I got the lion. And that lion ended up mauling the deer, and then they took it away from me.
They took the deer away?
No, they took the lion after he mauled the deer.
Oh,
I was out walking him in the woods, and he grabbed a hold of a deer.
Yeah.
And then the emu I got, I have a lot of, because I train hawks and hunt with them and breed them, and so I've been doing that since I was 9 years old. I'm deeply involved in that stuff, and I have a lot of friends who are involved with birds in some way. And a buddy of mine had hatched a bunch of emus, and I took two of them. One of them got killed by the dogs, and the other one I had for a long time. Cheryl, I flew him out here when I when I married Cheryl. I came to the West Coast, and I really had a hard time because I didn't know how I was going to get the emu across country. And then I had a friend who was called Richard Plepler, who was the head of HBO. And he kind of, was the guy who kind of started HBO. He was the first.
Back in the day.
He was the first CEO or whatever he was, but he was the head of it. And
I got issues with him. I never had a special, but go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Well, he's gone now, so you had your revenge. But anyway, he was coming. He was in New York for the Emmys, and I knew he'd be out there. So I said to him, I had just moved. My emu was still on the East Coast, and I said to him, I have a bird that I need brought to the West Coast, a pet bird. I didn't say it was little, but I said a pet bird, and it sounded like he was little. And I said, "Can you bring him out here on the plane?" And he said, "Sure." And so I had a friend of mine bring that emu to Teterboro Airport. And when he realized it was like a 7-foot bird, he wasn't that happy, but his kids were on the flight.
He wasn't that happy.
And
not what I expected, Robert. Thought I was getting a cardinal or a little parrot.
Anyway, the emu loved me, and it would go swimming in the pool with me, and if I came up to it, it would roll over on its back so I could scratch its stomach, and it would come in the house and hang out with me and the dogs and the kids. But it hated Cheryl, and it would chase her, and I would come home, and Cheryl would be on the computer, and I would see what she was looking at. She was like looking at lifespan of emus because she just was hoping.
2 more years.
Wondering whether she needed to hit it with a shovel or whether it would die on its own.
Eventually what happened to him?
A lion ate him. A mountain lion out here.
Oh wow!
The lion actually got caught in the cage. The lion had come every night. The emu, this was like during the fires, and the emu, I moved the emu to a friend of mine's house, a woman who had a lot of pets and horses and stuff.
Yeah.
And a lion came in and ate all of her chickens one at a time, and then it ate all of her guinea hens one at a time, and then it ate her 2 peacocks. And when it ate the peacocks, it got caught in. It was eating its way up the food.
Yeah.
And when it ate the peacocks, it got caught in the peacock cage. So she called the Fish and Game Commission, and they came down, and they said, well, we'll move them for you, but the lion will probably, even if we move him 100 miles, he'll probably try to get back here, and he could get hit by a car or something. So she was concerned about, okay, this is really the lion's property, and
right.
So she said to the Fish and Game people, well, do you think that lion could eat the emu? Because it was the only bird she had left.
Right.
And the guy said, there's no way he could eat that emu. Look at the size of the feet on that thing. And so they released the lion, and that night it came back and ate the emu.
Oh, wow.
My wife was not that, she was not in mourning long, let me put it that way.
I made a cake for the celebration of the emu's life. Well, here's what we get to. I'm fascinated by the human being that you are, and I was never a politician. I don't think half this country were into politics until the last couple of years, and we are probably in the worst state, in my opinion, maybe in history, without being violent, which could be even worse mentally. I think mentally, I've never seen a state of life where everyone's so categorized, and what I do like about your message out of the gate is people are going to try to stranglehold you, and your approach is, you've got a great approach. I mean, I'm not sure if I've seen any. You give me a calm demeanor, and I don't know you as a politician. I can't stand politicians. I smell the BS a mile away. I think I do. And what made you go, I'm gonna run for president? Why would you want to do that? You're such a real human being.
I saw kind of the stuff happening that stuff that you were talking about, like, how can this be happening to my country?
Yeah.
How can the government be, collaborating with these social media sites to lie to us about narratives? And then, how come we can't debate things? How come we're being censored? And then, I saw the war and saw how that was sold to the public with this kind of comic book story, rather than, actually looking at the nuance and looking at the provocations on our side, and really trying to figure out, how do we get into this, and how do we get out of it without killing a lot of people and, bankrupting ourselves. And then the entire Democratic Party, which used to be the anti-war party, was all of a sudden, pro-war, pro-censorship, pro-pharma, Wall Street, forget about the middle class, they're deplorable. We're on the side of Wall Street, and the big guys, they're the ones who are going to protect us, and, the fat cats and the big shots. And and then I saw the lockdowns, which were just a war on the poor in our country, the war on blacks and Black Americans and children and the most vulnerable people in our society, and who are just getting trampled by it. And we saw $4 trillion in wealth transferred from the middle class to the super rich. The stuff that was driving me crazy when they went out to the beaches in Malibu.
Oh my God!
And gave $1,000 tickets to surfers out in the ocean who were where there's no chance you're going to get COVID. And then they went to the skateboard parks in Venice.
I remember.
And they put sand on the half pipes so nobody could skate. And then they went to Compton and they padlocked the
playgrounds.
The playgrounds, and they padlocked the basketball courts. And if they couldn't padlock them, they went in and removed the hoops just to make sure that everybody stayed at home, you know, in those neighborhoods where, you know, there's kids in those neighborhoods that are, you know, they're a mile from the ocean who've never seen the ocean because they're not going to leave that neighborhood. And now they're locked in, you know, a lot of them, the child abuse went 55% of teenagers reported being abused, 55%.
Right.
The IQ dropped 22% in American toddlers, according to the Brown University study. And blacks were dying at 3.6 times the rate of whites. Why? Because of the, you know, being locked in and crappy medical care, and then no access to kind of early treatments. And of course, if your family goes in and says, we don't want them on the intubator, you know, what are you giving them? We don't want remdesivir. Nobody's going to get listened to. They lock the hospital doors. They lock the elder, the whole thing. Locking old people up and not letting their families see them, not letting their families be with them when they died. It was just, you know, the whole thing was outrageous. And
I've never seen anything like it in my life.
It made me furious. And I just said, nobody is out there talking about this stuff. The Democrats and Republicans are all co-signing this insanity. And so, you know, originally I said, I'm just going to run for president so that they have to stop censoring me and I can actually talk to people about this.
Right.
My wife was like, there's no way that you're running if you're running to make a point. So I put it aside for a while. And then this pollster, Jeremy Zogby, who runs one of the biggest polling firms in the country, and I didn't know him. Without me knowing it, he was polling me all over the country.
Yeah.
And so he called me about a year ago and he said, I need to show you these polls. And he came to my house and sat down with me. And, you know, my polling was, you know, despite the fact that for 3 years, I didn't get a single good article about me, just, you know, people saying,
oh, you're the antichrist of big pharmaceutical.
Right.
We must stop this opportunity. He's a danger to our projections and our mission. Lock them down. Can we find him cracked out somewhere when he's 15? Find something on him immediately. Oh, trust
exactly.
me. I watched you hard. I'm like, oh, they're gonna get him good. All I said was, I'm not doing venues at Fort Bax, and I believe in God. And God knew, like, you washed up, no good. How dare your wife's got cancer and you have the audacity I mean, I've never seen such an onslaught to humanity. Oh, I've got the videos. I got them. I saved them all. So
I had 3 years of that, of being the Antichrist. You know, the kooky, anti-vax, anti-science, you know, conspiracy theorists, and that's all anybody heard from me for 3 years.
Oh. And
then looking at the poll numbers, and you know, just a huge public approval rating. And you know, you know, he did a lot of tests to see whether they think, okay, maybe they think I'm my dad, and they think they're, you know, approving my dad. But he looked, you know, he did that. Those exclusions in the tabs. And it was clear that even though the media was painting this portrait of me, there were a lot of Americans who weren't buying it and who, you know, kind of liked me. So, you know, at that point, I was able to go to Cheryl and say, you know, I could actually win this. And so, you know, she signed on for me. And I wouldn't have done it without her.
So, you 100% feel you can get this in your heart of hearts.
Well, that I feel what?
That you can win president in 2024.
Well, I do. Yeah, I think I think I actually,
What do you think?
let me put it this way. I'd
Yeah.
rather be me right now than any of the other guys in terms of placing a bet on me. Because I really don't see how Biden can make it to the, without debating and I think it's going to be really hard for him to. And then there's all this other stuff happening that is kind of ugly, where some of the press seem to be turning on him. And so I just don't know. I think I'm going to be in pretty good shape. But you don't know. One of the things Kelly Slater said, Kelly Slater did this Instagram or Twitter Spaces with me this week.
Yeah.
And he was one of kind of, our guy, he was one of the guys who was skeptical throughout the pandemic.
Yeah.
And but one of the things he said, which I think is really cool, because most people say, if you really want something, like envision yourself, envision success. So,
right.
That to me would be envisioning that here I am, the president, standing in the White House or whatever. And I just find it hard to do that. But what Kelly Slater said is that when he was growing up, whenever he had a big surf event, a big contest, he would envision losing it. And then he would lose all of his fear of losing it. And then he would be able to relax and just do what he wanted to do and not worry about it. And so I actually find that more helpful, because I think if you don't have expectations, you'll never get disappointed. And if you don't have expectations, you can just relax and do what's right. You know what I mean? And feel good and feel peaceful doing it.
You're 100% correct, and that not only runs for presidency, but that goes with marriage and the kids and everything else in life. Don't have expectations. Well, I love now. I guess you're ready for what I call them, the professional demons that I call media. And this is what I loved what you did. If you don't mind, I have a clip. This guy to me is the ultimate, I'm going to come at you and I'm going to try to demoralize you. And you did, and people are trying to do this with me, right? They're trying to say I'm a right-wing comic, or I'm whatever, I'm conservative. You went on this event, so therefore you were this. And I keep telling people, and you said the same thing, which is why I really think we need this. Mike, could you play the categorized video?
You are a Democrat, and you come from a family of great Democrats, and yet, for some reason, you've gone along with this Donald Trump line about stolen elections and so on. Why?
I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't.
I mean, you've associated yourself with people.
Well,
you've been seen on podiums with people who are completely intransigent. They think that Donald Trump had the election stolen, that January 6th was justified, and so on. Why would you? Why would you be around people like that?
Pierce. Well, if you're asking me another question, because what you're saying about me complaining about stolen election, I complained about a stolen election in 2001, and I wrote an award-winning article about the theft of the 2004 election, but I have not spoken out about this election. I don't believe it was stolen, about Trump's election.
No, I'm talking, yeah.
Why do I appear? Why do I talk to Republicans? Why do I go on Fox News? And my reason for that, I talk to people who don't agree with me, and I believe that is critical for a democracy. We have a toxic polarization in this country right now that is more dangerous than the American Civil War. If we don't talk to people who don't agree with us, how are we going to persuade them? How are we going to find common ground? How are we going to end this polarization? I have always
I agree with you on that.
My opponents on the other side.
I agree with you on that.
And by the way, I talk to them, but I do not compromise my values.
Right.
I believe in all the democratic values that I was raised with, but I believe that we should talk to people from all sides.
So
these animals, they're gonna try. I loved I didn't know you from a lick in the wall, but I was so happy because they are the monsters. They're like, we got to go in there. We got to discredit them. Ask them, bring in the word Trump. They love bringing in the word Trump. They love, because in my opinion, another great thing you brought up was the Durham report. And what you said was, hey, listen, I don't care if it was Trump. You even said, like, I'm not even a fan. I'm not even a fan that he locked things down. I'm not a fan they did this and this. What I'm saying is the Durham report clearly says America has been taken out by their own people, CIA, government, social media, politicians, Democratic Party. And that's a very dangerous part of our society. And it's real. And I feel they're playing on pure hatred, but you handled it with such grace.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I was, I was kind of a leader in the environmental movement for 35 years. One of the top people that anybody would name, as if you asked them who were the most, who was the leaders of the environmental movement in our country, my name would be on that short list. I'm not trying to be, vain
Right.
or anything, but I'm just telling a reality.
Sure.
But during all those years, I was going on Fox News all the time. And I was going on the Hannity show, and I was going on Bill O'Reilly, and I was going on Neil Cavuto, and I would go on anybody who would let me on, because I want to talk to those audiences, and I want to talk to that host too. And I want to test their belief system and say, and also what they believe about me, because what they're saying about me does not characterize me. And
That's
so
right.
I like to be able to talk to people with whom I don't agree. It doesn't mean I'm co-signing their ideology. I'm not co-signing it. I'm there to debate them and to win that debate and to have a decent, respectful, congenial conversation with a guy I don't believe in, and that I don't believe in, and that with whom I disagree. And that's like the beauty of democracy. That's what we all ought to be doing. We shouldn't be collapsing into this tribalism, whereas if you talk to this guy, it means you're co-signing their hatred. That's not what I'm doing.
I believe in the same thing. I don't care. I can do a venue here. I can be on this platform. I can be on the real way. Wherever I'm saying, I'm sticking to what I say. So we're never going to be able to stop people from categorizing us. Do you fear? I shouldn't say fear. Do you think you're going to have a rougher attack from the Democratic Party or from the Republican Party as far as trying to take your legs out and discredit you and all that jazz?
Well, I think right now I'm going to get it worse, much worse from the Democrats. So, because I'm running against the Democrat. I'm running against the Democratic president. And so, of course, they're going to come after me. And it's not just the Democratic Party. There's all of these people who are allied with the White House, and you can read their talking points. You can read, I know how it works, that the White House is sending memos to all of their friends in the media, and they use the same words, the same language. I saw Robert Reich, who I've known for many years, did a sort of a hateful editorial about me yesterday. But, and I don't know what happened, but I suspect, because he was using language that I've now seen popping up everywhere, that I suspect that one of the things they all started using this week is that this is a vanity campaign for Robert Kennedy. But that vanity campaign was in probably 100 different articles written by different authors that I saw this week. And I just know enough about how things work that I know that the White House is, sending those memos out to friendly journalists saying, okay, here's how to go at him. Here's how to go at him. So, yeah, so I think it's not going to come directly from the White House. It's going to come from their proxies. It's going to come from the New York Times. It's going to come from the Washington Post. It's going to come from Daily Beast, Salon, Slate, the other organs that are run that are, have these weird relationships. Rolling Stone now, which has this weird relationship with the intelligence community, and you'll see it, and they'll all be using the same thing, and they're going to be hammering me for the next 8 months.
Well, I got to be honest with you. I think most of the world now truly doesn't trust them anymore. The only people that are fully invested in these corporations and the news are the ones that are really hard to think for themselves. And unfortunately, where social media like this has opened up such a new can of worms. Like I said, I'm not into, and there's a lot of people I know like me that were watching you and listening to you. I know a lot of people that are diehard Trump fans, but they love what you're putting out there. And all I'm going to say, because we could be here all day, and I'd love to speak with you more, and I don't want to eat up too much of your time. I just feel I'd love to see, and I hope this doesn't offend you, I don't trust my government anymore. I don't trust my media anymore. And I know I'm not the only one. There's hundreds of millions. I've been touring. We see it. And it's not even just an American thing. It's a worldwide thing, Robert. We don't trust our governments anymore. We think they're all criminals. We think they're all liars. We think they're all manipulators. We think they're all just mind controllers, along with the news. They've proven that. And I pray to God one day, and I pray to God you're in it for a reason to unite us all. I really do. And I do think you're coming from a beautiful place. I think you're coming from your heart, your spirit. And I hope there's guys like Trump. I don't know anything about Trump. But I hope one day we don't have Republican. We don't have Democrat. We just have Robert Kennedy. We just have this guy, and we just have this group that's all uniting. Where one group like you turns the other group like, you know what? Forget being Democrat. I like some of the things. I think us two are going to be able to change a lot of things from all of America, all of humanity. And I'm just going to wish you the ultimate of luck, because you're going to have such a storm. But I truly feel where you're coming from, and I think you're capable of pulling it off in one form or another. And if you don't, I pray to God you put out the messages that at least enough people know that you're coming from an honorable place, and they back you no matter what happens, and they wake up to understand what's truly important to keep us going in life.
Thank you, my friend.
You're welcome, brother. And I wish you the best. Like I said, I have all these. I have the Event 201 video, and I'll do another whole podcast of that with just you, and I won't even need you. The lying news media. I have all these. CNN, Anderson Cooper, and all. I'll do this on my own. Different. I just wanted to get to know you a little bit, and I wanted people to see a different side of you rather than you just being forced to go, hey, blah, 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 and a thing. Because we need this, man. We need it bad. And I know you know it. So much love to you, your family. And I hope we cross paths one day. And do me a favor. If you do win.
What do you need?
I say you get a lion. How amazing would it be you come out with a press conference with a lion? That's making a statement, Robert.
I can borrow one from Mike Tyson.
Yes, which was a fantastic interview. But anyway, I wish you safe journeys. I wish you the best. And it's an absolute pleasure getting to know you, Robert. Safe journeys
You
out
too.
there on the trail.
You
Hope
too.
we cross paths again.
Yeah, we will.
Take care, brother.
See ya.
Robert Kennedy. Before I had all these things I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to do a completely different podcast with it. And right before I got on, I was my wife pulled me aside. She goes, Jim, I see you pulling up all the videos, and I see you pulling up all this, and I see you doing this, and you want to get into conspiracies and this and that, and what he's going to do. How about we just get to know a human being? Like, where's this guy's heart? Where's his mind? Yes, he's going to go into politics. Yes, he's been in the public eye. Yes, he's a candidate. Yes, he's whatever. But I don't know if he's the answer, but I'll tell you what. I can relate to a guy being that open and honest to me and to all of you that's clearly going to run for leadership. And I want you to watch how they try to come after him. This guy has spoken out against big pharmaceutical, big government. And I think he comes, like I said, comes from an honest spot. And I pray to God, because we need it, man. We need it bad. We don't need any more people saying this side sucks and that side sucks. And they brainwashed each side hard. We need to unite. And we need to unite real fast. And we got to stop labeling ourselves. And we got to stop categorizing people. And we got to start the basics of finding the deeper connection of humanity. And I pray to God Robert pulls it off. I pray to God whoever's running pulls it off. Because we not only need it here to set an example, we need it in the world. Thanks for hanging out in the Breuniverse, and thank you, Robert Kennedy Jr., for jumping on today. And congratulations for your running for presidency. We'll catch you next week on the Breuniverse. Later.
Take a look around and what do you see? Lock the date down tonight, we're making history.
Hey, this is Jim Breuer, and I got my own Patreon page, and hopefully you'll check it out. Live comedy concert streamed once a month. Weekly, you host your own podcast, and you interview me. Early access to the Breuniverse podcast every single week, and have bonus footage and bonus segments. I promise you I'm not going to let you down. Go check out my official Jim Breuer Patreon page, and I'll see you there.
We'll catch you next week on the Breuniverse. Later. Boop. Jeez, Mike, I can't.